Greetings and welcome to MentorMe Memorable Moments. I am your host, Tracy Everette Duncan.
And I'm your co-host, William Craig III.
And we want to welcome
all 150 nations and all 50 of these United States of America.
That's right. We're back with our physical health program, and we are here with our physical health coach, Dion Bush.
Takes my breath away.
So happy to be back here again. I get so excited when it's my time. I get so excited because there's a wealth of information that we are ready to give to you.
That's
so
right.
Be ready.
That's right. You know, we have been on social media pushing this segment out because we have been hoping that we could get this guest speaker. She's a busy person,
Yes,
but we've been able to lock her in just for this hour. And we want you to know that she's going to be talking about diabetes. And yes, we've had diabetes discussions on this show, but this is our professional. She knows all about it, the ins and outs. And we're going to be asking some questions that you probably been asking out there in social media as well, because there's a new term to diabetes, and I want to know if that is true or not. And if so, then what should we be aware of? How should we be taking care of our body, etc.? But if you want to see the other programs on diabetes, then go to our website, MentorMe411.com. You'll find all of the programs there, as well as the bios on each of the health tenets. And you can go to our YouTube channel, just search for MentorMe 411, and you're going to see me, Tracy Everette, come up with all of the videos from there. And have fun. Get your tea, your latte, or whatever your preference is. Kick your feet up and just enjoy the videos. But we're going to turn this segment over to you, Coach D, because I know you're excited about this as much as we are.
Yes,
Absolutely. So, again, this guest, Sharon Hawks, she is a registered licensed dietitian. She is also a certified diabetes educator. So I know we can always talk about diabetes because things that we've read, but I wanted to bring the expert. This is who she is, what she does, and there's some myths out there about diabetes. I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't eat this, and so. So I wanted an expert to come on the show and to say, no, this is the truth.
Yes.
So, Sharon, how
I'm
are
here.
you doing?
I'm wonderful.
Welcome.
I'm happy
Welcome.
Good to be here. Good,
Thank you
good.
guys
Love
for
it that you're
having
here.
me.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
So, tell us, and I'm always saying that I was always say that diabetes is in the bloodline. Is that truth or is that fiction?
Well, you know, when it comes to the Black community and what we call type 2 diabetes, we'll discuss that a little bit later. But yeah, it is somewhat in the bloodline.
Okay.
It has a lot to do with genetics. Type 2 tends to be the most genetic type of diabetes. And like it or not, it is in your bloodline.
All right. So
All
I just
right.
wanted to know, and I want to know about pre-diabetes. I want to know about the type 1, type 2. So should we go to the first slide, or I'm going to turn it over to you and talk to us about diabetes?
Absolutely. And feel free to ask questions as we go along.
Okay.
Sure. So what we're going to be talking about today is the keys to prevention, treatment, and reversal. There's a lot of discussion about can diabetes be reversed,
One of my questions.
and we will address that today. And can it be prevented, which is also one of the biggest questions out there. Because as I said earlier, it is in your bloodline, but does that mean because it's in your bloodline, you're required to develop this condition?
All right.
So one of the things I always like to explain about diabetes is to understand how prevalent, how serious this condition is in our community. You have 4,384 new cases are diagnosed every day in the
That's a
United
lot.
States.
Wow.
That's every day.
Every day. Every day. And you have
Unbelievable.
195 non-traumatic lower limb amputations are performed. In other words, someone loses a limb,
Right.
a toe, a
Because of
foot to diabetes.
And could that be because they're not taking their health seriously? The doctors tell you do this, do that, and they're like, oh, that's not going to happen to me, so I can keep doing what I want to do.
Well, I think that's what the general population's opinion is about that. But
Okay.
I find being in this field for many years and working with diabetes day to day, what I find the biggest issue is it's just a lack of knowledge.
Okay, absolutely.
I'm wondering also if it's maybe some of these cases are diagnosed after the fact. Maybe the person has gone through such a trauma that they are admitted to the hospital, and oh my gosh, when the test results come back, here they are, or there's an amputation because they didn't know, or anything like that.
Well, typically it doesn't happen that quick, typically. Type 2 diabetes, particularly the one we're talking about, because that's the one that affects 90 to 95% of people with diabetes.
That's a hard one.
This is kind of slow moving thing. So when we get to the issue of amputations and going blind and heart disease, those type things, this is not something they wake up one morning and having a major problem. It's been
Okay.
going on for a while.
So is it progressive?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let me ask you this then. Would you say there are some amputations that maybe take place that are unnecessary?
I would say 100% of them are unnecessary.
All right.
Oh,
I got the best one.
ding, ding,
Where's the
ding,
bell?
Yeah, and the reason I would say that so much. Oh, thank you so much for that, Bill. The reason I would say that, I you always can't say 100%, but pretty close. A lot of it's going back to they're not taking care of themselves, not understanding the condition, and waiting too late.
Okay.
There are some conditions that may occur because of blood clot and different things, but your typical amputations have been because of extreme elevation in the blood sugars for a long time and not
Yes.
taking care of themselves. So
Right.
these conditions come about because of the lack of treatment of the disease.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
great.
All right. Whew.
Excellent.
Can we go back to that slide, please?
Those some numbers. I like
I
that.
know,
a lot
I
of
like
good
when you bring the
numbers.
up.
Yes.
Yes.
So again, 128 people began treatment for end-stage renal disease. This means they're going dialysis, okay?
Right, yes.
And you have 50 people develop blindness or diabetes, go blind, or diabetes is a contributing cause of their death. What we know is that, my slide is off there a little bit, something happened there, but 50 people go blind every day.
Wow.
Diabetes is one of those things that affect the vision a lot. And I like to tell people, just because you have blurred vision does not mean you're going blind.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Say that again.
Absolutely.
Tweet that one
Yeah,
out.
so-
I'm going to ding that one too.
Yeah.
So please don't get worked up when your vision
Right.
blurs and here and there. That's just a kind of manifestation of the blood sugars being elevated. When we're talking about going blind, we're talking about long term of untreated eye disease and not seeing ophthalmologists and getting treatment and that type thing. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight if the person has been actually monitoring their blood sugars and keeping things under control. But at the end of the day, 839 people will die each day from diabetes, or more specifically, diabetes is a contributing cause of their death.
Right. So how often should a person see an eye specialist?
Well, typically, if they've been diagnosed with diabetes, I would say at least twice a year.
At least
And of
twice
course,
a
if they're
year.
having something else going on, it'd be more often. Okay, it would
Okay.
be more often. It does not have to occur to have a problem with your vision, but you're going to find a lot of times when you have one condition, understand, it usually leads to the others. So when someone's dealing with end-stage renal disease, dealing with blindness, they're also having problems with circulation that may lead to
Yes.
amputations. It's almost a conglomerate of everything coming together at one time. Now understand that something like renal disease, there are other things that drives renal disease, more specifically high blood pressure.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the complications of diabetes that I find that may come along by itself, because the blood pressure itself is what spurred on the disease at a higher rate
Yes.
than the other conditions.
Okay, great. We can go to the next slide.
Yeah, and stress.
It's good.
Yes.
Good. So again, if we look at the U.S. population, we have 29.9 million people in the United States have diabetes.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, that's a huge number.
Now think about this. You have 9.3% of the U.S. population as a whole has it, but 8.9% of Marylanders. Now get this though, in D.C. where we sit, that number is actually lower.
Really?
We're actually quite surprised that
Yeah.
the D.C.
DC
rate
is
of
lower.
diabetes
Right.
is slightly lower than in Maryland.
Right. And you have a
Okay.
higher population of African Americans in the District of Columbia.
So you would think so, right?
Right.
But the rate is a little bit lower. It's a little bit
Interesting.
per capita, right?
Wow. Now, even about the slide back up with the type 2, I always thought type 1 was more prevalent, but I hear type 2 is.
No, not at all. 90 to 95% of people with
Yes,
diabetes have type
that's-
2.
that's-
So when we look at type 1, it's only 5 to 10% of
Right.
individuals have type 2. The reason we hear about type 1 so often is you recognize that most of the ones who are diagnosed with type 1 initially are children.
Right.
So a lot of the focus, emphasis, and money, for that matter,
With
goes
juvenile
into type
diabetes, right?
well, we used to call
You
it
call it.
juveniles. We only call it type 1 now.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
But
sorry.
even older folks get it now.
But I'm looking
so.
at that bottom stat. It
Yes.
says
Undisclosed.
undiagnosed.
Yes, undiagnosed.
Undiagnosed.
That's my
8.1
big
million.
issue.
So 8.1 million are undiagnosed. The reason I think that number is so high is because a lot of times we don't know what the symptoms are.
Right.
A lot of the symptoms of diabetes, and I'll show them to you later, mimic other conditions.
Absolutely.
So it's not that the person has ignored the conditions; they're just not putting 2 and 2 together to come up with the fact that it may be diabetes.
That brings me back to what I'm always preaching to my customers, my family. You have to know your body.
Right.
You have to know if you're getting these symptoms, you're like, okay, I've had it frequently. You know, maybe I just need to go see a doctor. We talked about the 5 myths that the 5 ugly habits that you're doing that could be hurting your heart. Not seeing your doctor is one of them. You know, I'm going to put it off because it's okay. I'm too busy to go see my doctor. And you go in and see your doctor immediately. Maybe that can just alleviate.
Yeah, and diabetes is one of those things. The earlier you catch it, the more
Yes.
aggressive you are with it, the better chance you have of controlling it and even reversing it. You know, I was doing a lecture. I lecture all the time, and I had a gentleman during the question and answer period said to me, you know, I haven't been to a doctor in several years because I'm a very healthy person. And I said, so said the man who was told he had 3 months to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Until he showed up to
Absolutely.
the doctor. How do you know if what you're doing is actually working if you don't show up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
So
it's
for me-
preventive maintenance, right?
Exactly. Not just preventive. It's kind of a clarification of what you're doing is actually working.
Absolutely. I
Because
like that.
because if you don't go in to clarify, you know, I make the point you wouldn't invest your money. Right, and not take a look at what's going on with it. Would you just put it out there and just leave it?
no.
Of course not. So I make the point about your health. How could you say if what you're doing is really working if you ain't verifying it?
Oh, I like that.
That's
Yeah.
right. Okay,
All right.
great.
So, what is diabetes?
Okay, so looking at the slide, what is diabetes? Diabetes is a disease that keeps your body from using food to make energy. Insulin is a hormone. Most of you have heard about insulin. And it makes the pancreas, and this pancreas is an organ in the body that produces this insulin, okay? And it helps the body to convert glucose, sugar, into energy. So people with diabetes either don't have enough insulin or the body can't use the insulin the way it should. And at the end of the day, there's a big misconception about what actually happens in the body when you develop diabetes. So if I were to ask the typical person with type 2 diabetes, what is diabetes? They'll say, my pancreas stopped working. And I would say, if your pancreas stopped working, you wouldn't be living. The pancreas has quite a few functions, and producing insulin is only one of them.
Right.
So it's a requirement for the pancreas. And even in that statement that, well, it's not producing insulin. And then I'll make the point where, let's look at this another way. Even if it's not producing insulin,
Yes.
that's actually type 1.
Absolutely.
So type 2
That's
is a
what they need
whole
to have
different
insulin.
mechanism that's going
Okay.
on.
Yes. Next slide.
Okay.
Next slide.
So
So
the
we
most
can-
common types of diabetes are type 1
type
diabetes.
1 and type 2. And what's interesting about the type 1 diabetes, I was saying, you see the figures again, only 5 to 10% of people diagnosed with type 1 and about 90 to 95% are diagnosed with type 2. So we're looking at type 2. Whenever I do most of my talks on diabetes, 95% of the time is about type 2 because that's what you're looking at in most people,
Yes.
particularly in the African American community and minority communities as a
Yes.
whole. We're looking at mostly type 2 being the major issue.
All right. So, I know you have a slide in there. You're going to break down and talk about the differences of type 1. So, you're going to start with type 1?
Yes.
I think that's one
Yes.
I'm really interested in. Type 2 is as well, but type 1 is
Yeah.
one that
You rarely
people
hear
kind of
about
shun
it.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So type 1 diabetes, someone with type 1 diabetes needs insulin shots every day because his or her pancreas does not make insulin. So I just made the point that the pancreas is the organ that produces insulin. This is this hormone
Yes.
that helps the body to usher in, if you will, sugar, glucose into the cells to be used for energy.
Okay.
The problem is with the type 1, something has occurred.
Yes.
either some type of autoimmune response or something, or a genetic condition that has caused the pancreas, the beta cells in the pancreas, to stop producing insulin or producing a very small amount of it. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter for the type 1 how well they eat or don't eat, how much they exercise or don't exercise, they will have to take insulin at the end of the day.
Now-
Only thing they can control is how much insulin, but they will not be able to not take insulin because the defect is the pancreas is making little or no insulin.
Okay. And this is one, so the type 1, could we say that this one is in the bloodline? Is it hereditary, or because I have friends, and I have specifically, I'm gonna say family members that say their mom didn't have diabetes, but the mom had a twin. Mom had the sister had diabetes, the aunt, the uncle, and now this child who has type 1 diabetes. And so would you say it's genetics?
Yeah, well, part of type 1 is interesting. I still hold to the fact that type 2 is more genetic.
Okay.
Type 1 has genetic components, to
good
it,
to know.
so that's a big part of it. But there's some autoimmune things that occur in the body, and they've suspected there's certain viruses or certain environmental factors that may induce type 1 diabetes.
Wow.
Okay.
So there's a gamut of things that can cause type
That's
1.
I know you
another
have
show.
something to say.
Yeah.
I know.
So let me ask about, I know we moved on to type 2. I want to ask one more question about type 1. Could it lie dormant, and then situations could bring up the symptoms of
I wouldn't think of it so much as lying dormant as to certain conditions that occurred, environmental or virus-wise or hereditary-wise, that cause the type 1 to come on. So I wouldn't say it lies dormant that way. I got a sense where you're going with this, and you're going to be surprised about something I'm about to tell you about the 2. But let me explain type 2, and then I want to make a point about something that I think is going to really surprise you.
Fantastic.
Okay? So type 2 diabetes, in someone with type 2 diabetes, the pancreas makes insulin, but not enough, or the body may need help in using the insulin. This is due to a condition called insulin resistance. Now, at the end of the day, what insulin resistance is basically the body is resisting allowing insulin to do what its role is. Okay? So what's interesting about that, I want you to catch this.
Okay.
The body is actually producing insulin.
Yes.
It's just not able to use it as effectively.
Right.
Okay, so that's one of the biggest misnomers. So people would always say the issue with type 2 is that the pancreas is not making insulin. That's not true. It's actually making insulin. The body's just not able to use it effectively. This condition called insulin resistance. And look at the slide that's up now. Insulin resistance is due mostly to excess central obesity.
Wow.
Oh
Now,
my
there are a lot of
gosh.
other
Say that
issues.
again.
Yes.
Central obesity. Now, let me say this. We don't know all the causes to type 2. There's other factors that come into play because I have patients who walk in all the time who are I don't say all the time, frequently, that are thin, okay? But what we know, the majority of people, if you line up 100 people in front of me and ask me to pick out the type 2 diabetics, people with diabetes.
Yes.
Okay.
I
like
like
people-
people with persons with diabetes.
Yes.
I could probably pick them out with probably 95% accuracy
Wow.
without knowing, but nothing but seeing them. Okay.
Wow.
Because we know there's a certain body type that kind of leads to type 2. And majority of my patients who come in when we talk about type 2 diabetes, they'll tell you right off when the blood sugar start to go up, the blood pressure start to go up, the cholesterol start to go up, when they start to pick up weight in the center area.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a big issue. So one of the things to know about type 2 is not just about being overweight, but where you carry the weight.
Okay.
Wow.
Look at that.
So we would say midsection is the culprit.
Midsection, something we call visceral fat. Okay,
That's right, yes.
VISCERL, as one of my patients said, my visceral rolls. Okay, so it is a central obesity is one of the biggest issues because this is what also puts stress on the organs and that type thing too as well. There's research that suggests that when it comes to the fat on the body, visceral fat, which accumulates itself in the center, poses the greatest risk to your health overall.
Right.
But they go on to say that the fat down the lower body, something we call the pear shape, pose no major risk to your overall health. So I was actually reading a medical journal that the title of the article was "Big Butt, Less Risk." Okay, they were just making a point.
Okay. In some neighborhoods, yes.
So actually, no matter how large you are at the bottom, when it comes to metabolic health related to heart disease, diabetes, fatty liver, those type things. They're more prone to people who carry the extra weight here in the center.
So let me ask Coach D this question. I know we've got a lot of slides to be pushing through, but when someone is trying to then exercise to lose weight and they are diabetic and obese, and this is the visceral areas giving them problems, are they able to lose that weight in this area, or is this something that they have to do?
And then Sharon, she's a fitness expert as well.
Oh,
well,
yeah,
what
wonderful.
I'm going to say is, when with my clients with that, it's not just the focus is not just going to be the midsection. You're talking about the total body. So you have to look about nutrition. You have to look about their stress levels. How's their their day. You have to look at all of that. So you can't just zero in on let's do some crunches and that's going to help your problem. No, it's the total body.
Boy, I hope you all are hearing that
Yes,
out
it's
there.
the total
Take
body.
that pressure off yourself.
Absolutely.
And it does when we look at exercise. Actually, I have a slide on that, so
Yes.
I'll kind of stay to that part of it because one of the biggest thing is, and Dion noticed as well, you can't spot reduce.
You cannot.
You can spot tone, but you can't spot reduce.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
But we do know that when you lose weight, and we've proven this clinically, that the first place the body want to take it from is the center area.
Yes.
So you
Okay.
do tend to lose
That's good
weight
news.
quicker
Yes.
in the stomach. People always say that's not true, but every time they start to lose weight, when I ask how the weight loss is going, the first thing they do is what?
My
Grab the
waist,
Okay.
my pants
So-
are falling off.
Yeah. So I think the body's attempt to try to get you back to somewhat kind of equilibrium,
Yes.
due to that's probably the most unhealthy type of fat to have on your body, is the reason it tends to take it from that place first.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so what's the cause?
So the bottom line to type 2 diabetes and ultimately insulin resistance and ultimately type 2 diabetes come from two sources: genetics, I think I make the case there, and
Yes,
lifestyle.
and lifestyle.
And here's where lifestyle comes into play. Genetics sets the stage for a disease, but lifestyle controls the outcome. And I know y'all can tell by now that I'm Southern born and bred.
Not you.
And so I have a little saying for everything. They say it one way, and the Southerners have to find their own way of saying it.
Absolutely.
And what I love to say is genetics starts the car, but lifestyle drives it.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Wow.
So even though you've been predisposed to it, does not mean you have to get diabetes. But
Okay.
understand,
Right.
you put the lifestyle things in place, and then there's an issue.
There it is.
Wow. All right, so borderline. People always talk about the pre-diabetes.
Right, that's a new buzzword.
It's a
right?
new buzzword. It is.
So pre-diabetes and borderline diabetes are the same thing, okay? We used to call it borderline diabetes, but as well as I, when you tell someone they're borderline anything, what do?
Deny it.
Nothing. Borderline
Nothing.
means I just missed it. I'm on
Yeah.
this side of the fence
Yes,
and not on
yes.
that side of the fence.
But I've heard
okay?
people tell me that. There's like they said I'm borderline, so I'm good. I'm like, well, you can't still live
Yeah.
the lifestyle that you're
Right.
living. You have to do something about this. So
And what's interesting, we changed the term to pre-diabetes for several reasons. One of the biggest issues for pre-diabetes, when anyone says to me I'm pre-something, I get nervous about what is
Yeah.
coming after that pre.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So it kind of makes you more in tune to that you have an issue.
Yes.
And some of the new research over the last 10 or 15 years have blown this whole theory out the window that when you're borderline, it's no big deal. Because we have learned that your cardiovascular risks have increased even during the pre-diabetic stage. You'll be
Absolutely.
amazed at how many patients I have walk in to see me in the pre-diabetic stage who have already had a heart attack or a stroke.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
So this is not
But
a
those are some
time
of
we
the
can forget it.
complications of diabetes.
Absolutely.
It's vicious if you don't take it, if you
Absolutely.
don't put it
Absolutely.
under control.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's vicious.
Under control.
Absolutely.
All right.
So pre-diabetes is a term used to distinguish people who are at increased risk for developing diabetes, and people with pre-diabetes have elevated blood sugars, but they are not high enough to be classified as diabetes.
Okay.
Progression to diabetes among those with pre-diabetes is not inevitable. Studies suggest that if they just lose some weight and make some lifestyle changes, they can return their blood sugar back to
right.
normal.
See, that
But be
sounds
clear.
easy.
It sounds easy, but here's the thing. There are specific things you need to do, and I'm going to touch on some of those in order to do that. There's a misnomer on what do you need to do to control the blood sugars too as well.
Absolutely.
And so the thing is, they can return their blood sugar back to normal. They reduce their risk. Okay. So what we're looking at is someone who falls in a certain category. Looking at the chart, you see here
Yes.
that acceptable range, someone fasting. Overnight,
Yes.
they fast for 8 hours. Overnight, they come in, have their blood sugar taken. If they come in on 100, that's acceptable as being normal.
Good.
There's also another test we call the glucose tolerance test.
Right.
It's a 2-hour challenge test. And some of you may have had that done where you drink this horrible sweet stuff.
Right.
I used to describe it as flat soda with sugar added to it. And then I realized I was making this way too complicated. It's syrup. Okay.
One word, syrup.
Syrup. And then have the audacity to give it flavors like it's going to help. Okay. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is this. They're giving the body a large amount, 100 grams of pure glucose, 75 to 100 grams of pure glucose. And they ask the body, say, now, pancreas, let me see what you got.
Wow.
Okay. So they're waiting to see, can the pancreas process this sugar at the rate it should normally?
Right.
Okay. And if it can, that means things are good. If it's not, then it means we have a problem.
Okay, so when is this test generally given? To someone who says, the doctor says, okay, you are pre-diabetic, let's find out, or someone just saying, could you test me to see if I am a candidate for diabetes?
Okay.
When is this test given?
Well, it should be done at all your physicals. Okay.
Oh,
Really?
okay, so I need to talk to my doctor.
Yeah, trust me, it's probably being done, but the problem is most people don't know how to read the lab work and don't know what they're looking for.
Okay, all right, so I need to get educated on
Most
that.
people,
Okay.
as in who, the customer, the patient,
or the doctor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So one of the things I love to do with my patients coming, I require that every patient come in and have their recent lab work.
Okay.
Because not only am I looking at to verify where they are, but I also want to explain to them all the labs that are linked to
Absolutely.
diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, those things too as well.
Absolutely.
So when we're looking at that test, they may have a random blood glucose that they did in the morning where they say, okay, they took your finger stick and what number do we have? And when they send it to the lab, they will also have just a random for that time.
Okay.
But something called the hemoglobin A1C, I'll explain that later, gives us a better idea. So if you take a look at this with pre-diabetes, now I want you to follow this. Pre-diabetes, this person's fasting blood sugar is going to come in between 100 and 125.
Okay.
Someone with who've done the 2-hour glucose tolerance test, as you know, normal would be 140, and pre-diabetes would fall somewhere between 140 and 199. So as you're looking at these numbers, you clearly see they're outside of the normal range.
Right.
But if you take a look at the last area there, to be classified as diabetes, they must come in at 126 milligrams per deciliter or higher. Okay? So keep in mind, though, that the standard is you have to be tested at least twice to verify that you have diabetes. Not with the same test, there's other tests
Right.
we can do as well.
Okay.
And then with a 2-hour glucose tolerance test coming in over 200.
So you said you will test for this? Is this
No,
something you do?
actually, typically your doctor would
Your
do
doctor
it.
would do
Your
it,
doctor
okay.
would do it because they have
But
to
you can
run
read
through
the
the lab.
numbers and
Yeah,
tell
I can
us.
recommend and different things to a diabetes specialist, but typically by the time they get with me, they've already been diagnosed.
Okay.
But because I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, I see patients for hypertension, cholesterol, weight loss,
Yes.
irritable bowel, all those things too as well. So you'll be amazed that I've actually caught patients coming in with another condition who actually have diabetes.
Wow.
Because there are certain
That's
things
wow.
about them that automatically said to me, we need to check them for diabetes.
Yes,
Okay, and a lot of times I'm looking for them to find out they have pre-diabetes. I come back to even my surprise, they're in the diabetic range and
Oh
never
my
knew it.
goodness.
Okay. Right. So again, we were talking about the study suggests with weight loss and increased physical activity, you can actually return the blood sugar back to normal.
Right.
But as I made the point before, these people are already at an increased risk for heart disease and stroke, even in the pre-diabetic range. So we've learned we cannot wait till they're in full diabetes before they respond.
Right.
A lot of physicians over the years, no fault of their own, that they would actually go, no big deal,
Right.
with pre-diabetes. But now I'm seeing patients tons of patients with pre-diabetes. And in fact, we're looking at getting a program pre-diabetes for prevention and reversal and that type of thing because we have got to respond quicker because these numbers keep increasing. And it's
Right.
We saw
because
that-
we're missing it early on.
We saw the 8.1
Yes,
million,
that's
right? They
right.
don't even know.
know. Yeah,
so
don't even know.
We're going to
Don't
get
even
this
know.
show out there because
got
that's
it.
why I was I'm just like eager to get this program aired because people need to know.
Right.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
So how can you prevent diabetes? You know this. Keep the weight under
Yes.
control. Here's what research has shown us. If you lose just 5 to 10% of your body weight, it can reduce your risk of developing diabetes by 58%.
That's a good number.
But here's the part you need to get, though.
Right.
A lot of times when you go into your health professional clinicians, your doctor, they use height and weight charts, and say you need to lose 75 pounds.
Yes.
And I explained the research says just with a 5 to 10% weight loss, it's enough to reduce your risk significantly with just the weight
Absolutely.
loss alone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this gives patients hope because they have this big
Yes.
number. The person like myself who specialize in weight management and in the GI tract, a lot of times we're looking at understanding that it's only a small amount that reduce your risk for major diseases.
Right.
Doctors, because in their defense, nutrition and weight management is not their area of specialty.
It's not.
Right.
So,
That's right.
so they're using height and weight charts. The truth is, in a good dietitian nutritionist office, we don't have height and weight charts. They're
Yes.
irrelevant
Okay.
because there's
Okay.
other factors we're going to look at. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when I say to a patient that if you lose 10% of your body weight, it can reverse the condition. That's manageable.
Yes,
You had
that's
200
manageable. manageable.
It is. I can
Absolutely.
do
200
that.
pounds,
Yes.
you're only talking 10 to 20 pounds
Right.
versus they're telling you need to lose 75 pounds.
And
The
aren't
prob-
those height and weight charts based on a demographic that really isn't reflective of the community we're
Absolutely.
serving?
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
And that's a whole nother lecture.
Yes, that's a whole
But
other. Yes, absolutely.
yes. That they can give general idea,
Yes.
but at the end of the day, everyone's different as to what's normal for them. Because remember I told you about the patient coming in at thin?
Right.
The truth is, because of their body type, the reason their body is responding that way is because their body isn't even used to 10 or 15 pounds
Right.
being on it.
That's
As
right.
with
Okay.
someone who's used to being heavier, they're going to have better outcomes than someone who
Wow.
weight was a lot lower when they were younger.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay. Next slide.
Yes.
So how can we prevent diabetes again? Keep the weight under control. Be physically active. Now, Deanna tell you,
Yes.
we harp on this a lot about how important it is to combine both aerobic and strength training together. You know, you have one group want to strength train all the time. You have one just don't want to do cardio
Aerobics
all the time.
yes.
And the key
But
is
we
you
need
need
that
both.
balance. You need both,
You
especially
need
when we're getting
balance.
older too. And if you're older with diabetes, you have to get that strength
yeah.
training.
You
in.
have
You
to.
have to because our,
Yeah.
our body structures change after a while.
Yeah.
So
and you
get
have
it
to
in.
keep the lean body mass there.
Absolutely.
And so everything don't shake and jiggle around. But here's the thing: a lot of people don't know though that, and Dion can attest to this. For every decade a life, a woman over 30, she loses anywhere between 5 to 7% of her lean body mass every decade. This is a normal occurrence.
Normal.
It's nothing she's doing. It's just a normal occurrence. But understand, if she strength trains just 20 minutes, 3 days a week. For 6 weeks, she can gain back a whole decade of muscle loss.
Wow.
So
A
if she
whole
stays
decade.
the whole
A whole
decade.
decade.
So the
Yes.
key is, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this. One of the things we know about diabetes too as well, even though cardio would help lower the blood sugar immediately, research has indicated to us that long-term effect
Yes.
is strength training.
Strength training.
Because the issue
Absolutely.
is where the defect in the body is occurring that's causing the problem with diabetes is occurring on the muscle. So if you strengthen the muscle, you tend to have better response
Absolutely.
with
Really?
being able to
I
process
believe
the
that.
glucose.
Yes.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So
So
put that
both.
strength training in. Yes.
So what are the risk factors of diabetes? Family history, diabetes, parents, sibling, a child. I like to say first degree relatives. That would be
Yes.
your parents, your siblings, your grandparents, your first degree uncles, first degree aunts. Now, what would surprise most people in general, which family member do you think would tell you your greatest risk of developing diabetes? In other words, if that family member developed diabetes and you don't have it and they're a first degree relative, you should get really concerned that you're at risk. Who would you think it would be?
I would say the grandmother.
So you saying who? I'm trying to
Just
process
like a
this.
yes, Deanna.
It's not a trick question.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, the child parent.
Okay. It would be your sibling.
Sibling.
Oh,
Really?
wow. Okay.
Why did you guess down
say
there?
that?
She didn't ask me.
Okay, so the sibling.
sibling.
It
Okay.
would be your sibling. You understand you have two parents coming from two genetic lines.
Okay, okay.
So how
I'm
do you
seeing
know if
this.
it actually crosses over genetic lines? If one of the siblings get it. One of the siblings get it, it's
Right.
on. Your risk just increased
Wow.
significantly. I see families from siblings from the oldest to the youngest down to the youngest. Okay, and if it gets out of line as to who developed diabetes because one's living a little bit better than others.
Right.
So when I have somebody go, what my oldest brother, he doesn't have diabetes.
Right,
So I can,
right.
and I immediately say, I can tell you how your oldest brother's living. They go, what does that mean? They're watching their weight, they're eating
Right.
healthy, they're exercising.
Absolutely.
Okay. You got
Wow. Wow. You know what? There was a slide before diabetes. What are the symptoms? Mike, can you put that one
Oh,
up
yeah,
very
yeah.
quickly? We want to make sure that everybody understands what to
This-
look for.
it? Yeah. So what are the symptoms of diabetes? Frequent urination. Okay, this is one that sends a lot of people to the doctor alternately with a diagnosis of diabetes because what's happening, we're not talking about they're just going to the bathroom more often. Where the problem occurs that alarms people is in the middle of the night.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
You,
Yeah.
you go to bed and you've had problems getting up in the middle of the night having to urinate. So you decided I'm not going to drink anything after 7 p.m.
Right.
Okay, you head to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock. Okay. So
You laughing at?
so about 10:30, you get up, you head to the bathroom. Okay, I'm clearing the bladder.
Right,
We're good.
right.
You go to sleep, about an hour and a half later, you're up again. And it's like that all
Wow.
night. After about
Wow.
the fourth or fifth time, the mind says, I don't know what's wrong,
Something's
but something
wrong.
is clearly
something
wrong.
is
Yeah.
Okay,
wrong.
so they go to the doctor, not expecting to be diagnosed with diabetes, but please make this stop so I can get some sleep.
Absolutely.
And usual thirst, and you can understand how people can think the reason they're urinating more often because they're more
They're
thirsty.
thirsty.
I won't go into the whole physiology of it, but the
Yes.
thirst and urination are actually not directly related. Okay, the extreme hunger can never seem to get enough to eat, unusual weight loss. You haven't done anything to lose weight and you
And it's
lost
just
15 and
boom, you
25.
lost.
I'm always fascinated, particularly in the African American community. You haven't done anything to lose weight, you lose 10 pounds, and you see that as a blessing.
Okay. Okay.
Understanding what I know about
Did you all
the
hear that?
physiology of the
Yes.
body.
Yes. Did you hear that?
What I know about
That's
the physiology
serious,
of the
though.
body, if I lost 10 pounds and was not trying, I would get horribly
Yes.
afraid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there are
Be
some
concerned.
conditions that be really concerned. Be really concerned. Because if you
Absolutely.
just don't lose weight just because you was thinking about
No,
losing
you do
weight,
not.
you
Do
must
not.
create a deficit.
Okay.
You got it?
Wow.
All right.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay, so do we need to clear some of the risk factors for diabetes again, or we
Yeah,
can move
something
on?
else I want you to see is this slide.
Okay.
Can you see that slide and see what's going on there?
Yeah, look
something
at the
called
yes.
darkening
acanthosis.
of the neck. Yeah.
Yes.
Something called acanthosis nigricans. When we look at the risk factors for diabetes, we kind of skipped over the slides a little bit, but the acanthosis nigricans is a kind of giveaway. You remember I told you I had a couple people come into my office, and even
Yes.
though they come in for one
Oh,
thing, I'm looking at them. I see the central obesity we've talked about, and then I see this telltale thing around the neck we call acanthosis nigricans. It's kind of darkening.
Yes.
And as you can see, sometimes the skin even come across almost velvety, like a snake skin,
Wow.
almost a
Right.
different texture.
Right.
And that's,
That's a
usually an
sign.
indication of high insulin levels in the blood, which is an indication of pre-diabetes insulin resistance.
Okay, and then
That's
but
something.
some people think that no, I'm just heavy. I have a thick neck, or uh,
Or
these are
they're not
changing
cleaning
colors.
themselves as well.
Right.
And then there's some of the misconceptions in the black community, and some horrible things have been done to people in the name of thinking that there's something that they're doing and not something that's actually internal.
Right. But I went to a dermatologist several years ago, and that was one of the first things that he counseled me about. He said you should have an even tone of your skin
Yeah.
Yes.
from head
Yeah.
all the way down.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and it was very interesting because no one had ever said that to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now I'm looking at folks. I'm going, oh wow, and I'm seeing the differences and where, like you say, around the neck,
Around the
it
neck.
have those dark spaces. I'm going,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
but that's not.
And would that be
for
the only
everyone,
area?
Well, actually, you can find it in other skin folds.
Okay,
too,
in
as
the
well.
skin folds,
In the
okay,
skin
so
folds,
skin
you would
folds.
typically
But that's
see it
not
this way.
something that all persons with diabetes would have.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
All right.
And typically you'll see it a lot more in women too as well.
Okay.
I won't go into one other, believe it or not, one of the other risk factors for diabetes, something called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so we see this a lot in young women. And so they would probably have that telltale sign with the acanthosis nigricans. And what's scary about PCOS is a risk factor for diabetes, but it can render a young lady infertile. So it's
Oh, my.
important to know
Wow.
that this condition is
Yes.
going on.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay, next slide, please.
So the complications of diabetes, these are the things that scares people with diabetes the most, okay? So we're looking at heart disease and stroke, high blood pressure, blindness, kidney disease, nervous system disease, amputation, dental disease, and complications during pregnancy. These are major conditions, life-threatening conditions
Yes.
in a lot of cases. So these are the results of it. And without it, without addressing these things, we're gonna have a problem later on if they don't get their blood sugar under control.
All right, what about this slide here?
So low blood sugar. This is one of the
Okay.
things you're going to see during diabetes where the person experiences low blood sugars. Now, what is going on? If you take a look at the next slide, you'll see some of the symptoms, if you will, of what's going to happen when you have low
look at
blood
that.
sugar. So you have headache, shaking, sweating, feeling tired, weakness, hunger. It's interesting though. I think one of the misconceptions is that it can't be low blood sugar if I'm not having all these symptoms. In reality, most people may have one of these symptoms.
Wow.
Okay.
And some of the symptoms people have when their blood sugar is low may not even be on this slide. I had one patient who said the only way he knew his blood sugar was low was his tongue tingled.
Wow.
Okay, so
That's a new one.
so I tell
That is a
people
new
to get to know your body, as
Get to
Dion was
know
saying
your body,
earlier, so you
absolutely.
know what you're looking for and what you're feeling. Okay.
Right. All
And
right.
what we always hear too is always test. Test. If you have questions about where your sugar level is,
Yeah.
test.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
You really need to, because if you move ahead to the next slide, you understand how you treat the low blood sugar. We won't go in there too much, but a lot of times people go overboard with treating the low blood sugar, taking in too much. So this would actually would require a little explanation on how you eat with diabetes. But I can come back another time and talk about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But one of the biggest things is not going overboard, because they take in too much carbohydrates to treat the low blood sugar, and now they done went from low blood sugar to high blood sugar.
Yeah.
So true.
So there's
Up to hyper, right?
yeah, so there's a system of how to treat the low blood sugar, to do it in a way where you correct the problem without creating another.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
This is good stuff.
Yes.
All right, next
Yeah.
slide. This is
Yeah.
good stuff.
So hyperglycemia, high blood sugar. Now I want you to look at these symptoms. You got thirst, excess urine, thinning, losing weight, blurred vision, hunger. Do you notice something about the high blood sugars and the low blood sugar symptoms?
The thirst.
Well, there's several that are the same.
Blind.
I'm
Okay.
about
Blurred
to say
vision.
that they are.
Excess urine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Hunger.
blurred
Because
vision.
it throws people off.
It throws them off. Absolutely.
Well, what I'm getting at is this: how you treat one and how you treat the other are totally
Yes,
different.
absolutely.
So if you don't know which one it is,
That's
you
right.
treat it the wrong way. It can be
and
deadly.
mistreating.
And that's why I
Yes.
said
It
you
can be deadly.
always test to find
When
out
Absolutely.
when
it
in
is.
doubt, you test.
That's right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
Wow. Next
Yeah,
slide,
this is
please.
good stuff. I hope you guys are really taking note of this.
So what causes high blood sugar? Of course, you don't have enough insulin in your body. You may mistake your diabetes medication. We're big components that having a problem with taking that medication.
Oh, yes.
You ate too much at a meal or over time. You don't get enough exercise. Maybe a medication you taking for something else. You get sick, get a cold,
Can be-
get the flu, may
Right.
actually be
Right.
causing
Can
that.
trigger it,
Or you're
right.
sick, having an
Oh,
infection.
say that
or you're under
again.
or you're under stress.
Yes.
All those things
Stress.
too
Stress.
can contribute to high
Stress.
blood sugar. So understanding necessarily because the person has overeaten. Okay, because we're always saying you need to stop eating. That's why your blood sugar is so high.
Right.
It could actually be other things that may be actually
That's
doing.
Absolutely.
right. That's
Absolutely.
right. Yes.
So again, and this is just talking about some of the things you need to do in order to address that high blood sugar. So again, taking your medication, maybe need your meal plan changed, those type things. And checking, you may be sick and don't know it. So always, when you see things happen with your blood sugar out of the norm, please respond to figure out what's doing it.
And don't get stressed because it's high and you eat something that's
Absolutely.
spiked it high.
Absolutely.
Or, don't get stressed.
Yeah, because the
at
truth
all.
is, if you know what did it,
Right. Stay away from it.
Stay
or
away
eat
from
it in
it.
moderation.
Exactly.
That
we're
goes
more
right to
concerned when
the
you don't know what's done and you're doing it all the time. It's happening all the time. It's going to be important.
Exactly.
But research says if you get 80% of your blood sugars are within normal range, you'll receive a normal reading when you go in for your test. So you have to be 100% perfect at it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
But we can't have you doing 20/80.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay, we're gonna
That's
need
right.
at least 80% or more of the time you do what you're supposed to.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So as we know, what foods have the greatest effect on the blood sugar? Most people know this. It's carbohydrates. But
Yes.
what they don't know
But
is what carbs
The
are.
types of carbs.
Yeah, yeah.
You got good carbs and you got those.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so let me show you. I want you to see this slide,
And
and
most of
hopefully
us
it's the
like
next
the good
one.
carbs. Okay.
Everything
There it is
on
right there.
this page is
Yeah, they like the-
carbohydrates. Now,
yeah.
outside the meat, inside the bun, right? So what surprises people is juice and fruit are carbs, just like
Yes.
corn
That's right.
and bread
That's
and
right.
gluten and potatoes. So they get a false sense of what they think carbs are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Those were those blueberries?
Yes, they are
They're carbs.
fruit,
They
so
consider-
they're
they
carbs.
consider
Now,
carbs.
what gets people confused is that I don't like to use the term good and bad carbs, but what I will say, some carbs are
Complex,
lower in
right.
carbs and sugars. Others, some are more complex, and others are going to respond differently.
Right.
So
Okay.
if you cut down on your simple carbs, we know this already: cake pies, candy,
Right.
cookies,
I
sodas.
still call those the bad carbs.
Watch the undocumented calories. You know what they are. You walking past someone's desk, you grab a cookie. You know,
Oh, M&M's.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
too much sugar can cause your blood sugar to spike, causing pancreas to release more insulin, and that's what causes the problem. Okay, insulin stimulates the liver to make more cholesterol, and again, it's going to increase the level and your stress level too as well. All this stuff go
That's
together
right.
to create total havoc.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
it really is about watching, moderating what you're eating,
Absolutely.
and being more active.
And that lifestyle.
Yeah,
That
lifestyle as a whole.
Wow.
That's the
So
key.
more of the
Next
complex
slide,
carbs
please.
as opposed to them simple
So,
carbs.
so one of the things I've kind of narrowed it down over
I like
the years.
this,
I've been doing
yes.
this for many years, and a lot of my colleagues go into these long, big, drawn out. What do you need to do to eat right to be healthy for diabetes? I've narrowed it down to really 3 points. I joke
Yes.
about this. I won't go into the whole story, but a gentleman on the plane was asking me 10 minutes before the plane land, how do I eat to control my blood sugar? And, we had been on a 5-hour flight, in the last 10 minutes he asked me this. And so I thought about that if I only had 10 minutes with someone, what would I deem most important to tell them?
Right.
So these 3
love it.
rules would be a part of it as far as food is concerned.
So there's your title for your next book, 10 Minutes to Live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm actually in the middle of writing a book. My mouth to God is I've got to get it done,
Oh, I love
and
it.
I am struggling with the title. So,
10 Minutes to Live.
so what are the 3 rules to eating like a
I
person
love
with diabetes?
this. People pay attention.
Yeah.
Tell this.
Yeah.
This is important.
So the key with carbs is not to cut them out. That's one of the biggest misconceptions
Thank
for the
you.
diabetic. You don't have to cut out carbs. You spread them out.
Yes.
See, long
Okay.
as you don't overload the pancreas all at one time, it can
Absolutely.
do its job. If
Absolutely.
you remember what I said for the type 2 diabetic, person with diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that their pancreas is making insulin. It's just not using the
way it
insulin
should.
efficiently.
Yes.
Right.
So if you give it time to catch up, okay, by spreading throughout the day, you're gonna have a
Right.
better chance of
Okay.
controlling those blood sugars.
And does the
Okay.
food
Okay.
digest like your food digests is typically 2 to 3 hours?
Actually, what happens, regardless of carbohydrates, protein, and fat,
Right.
it takes about 4 to 5 hours for it to digest.
Okay.
So long as you keep your meal spaced about that far apart, if you know the meals are going to be more than 4 to 5 hours apart, that's when you add a snack. I've heard this crazy rumor
Okay.
going around, you should be eating every 2 hours. I said, do that, get fat, and you never control your blood sugar.
Well,
Okay.
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 Well, that'd be another show.
another
That-
show.
that's a whole
Yeah,
nother
that'd
show.
be a whole nother
So
show.
speaking to the nutrition specialist, the reason I would say that, and let me explain why. If you had the right combination in the meal in the first place, you should not get hungry for 4 to 5 hours.
Okay.
So I'm not saying, so if the person gets hungry in 2 hours, it's because they did not have the right combination in the meal in the first place, which brings up the other 2 rules. The second rule says, the first one says, spread the carbohydrates. The second rule says, never
5
allow
hours.
more than 4 to 5 hours
to
in
pass
between your
by.
meals.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if there is going to be, you're going to add a snack. And
Right.
that third rule says, whenever you eat, whether it's a meal or a snack, what
Yes.
must always be present if you're going to say I'm satisfied,
Yes.
or is a good source of
Amen.
high
And
fiber
high
carbs
fiber,
and protein.
absolutely.
Yes.
Here's
Absolutely.
why. Fiber gives you a sense of fullness.
Fullness,
yeah.
Initially,
absolutely.
it's going to stop you from eating, from overeating.
Absolutely.
What we know as nutritionists, it also lines the intestine walls and slows down the absorption of the sugar and cholesterol, for
Okay.
that matter,
Good
fats
stuff.
and different things too as well. So it has so many other benefits to it. It helps with weight loss because, again, it helps you feel full, helps you cut
Yes.
down on what you're eating. But that feeling only lasts about an hour and a half. The only
Okay.
nutrient that has been shown to help you feel the fullest the longest is protein.
Okay.
Protein will extend that fullness for at least about 3 to 4 hours. Okay. So if you have a high fiber and no protein, you can feel full initially, not gonna last. though.
Okay. Well, that's
Good to
interesting.
know.
We
The
need to
protein
bring you
extends.
back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
Talk about
stuff.
that.
Yes.
What that is.
All right.
Okay.
So again, another thing I do for my older patients or patients who don't want to get into watching their carbs and everything, I do it called the plate method. As you know, half of the plate is your non-starchy vegetables, and then you have 1/4 starch and 1/4 meat. And then you have 2 carb choices on the side too as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. And
like
if you
that.
want to see what that looks like, the next slide was at the previous slide.
That's
And so,
yeah,
so this is what it would look like. Okay.
good, yeah.
So long as you're staying along in that line, even there you can control your blood sugar, because the average American is half of that plate is meat, the other half is starch, and then they have some
Yes.
vegetables sitting off somewhere on the side. Right?
Okay.
So
That's attainable.
you want to lose weight. If you want to control this blood sugar and ultimately reverse the diabetes, you got to lose weight.
Okay.
And if you're not overweight, you need to stay there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Next. So smoking and diabetes, just stop it.
Just stop.
If you smoke long enough, it's going to kill you.
Yes.
We know this. There's no debate about this. You have to stop smoking. I always say to people when it comes to circulation that problems that leads to amputations and kidney
Wow.
issues, that
Yes.
diabetes is one of the worst things you can have. The only thing worse you can do besides having diabetes that affects circulation is smoke along with it.
Smoke along with
Okay.
it.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And now you're playing Russian roulette.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Wow.
Okay.
I like
Next.
this one.
Yeah.
So reduce everyday stress. At the end of the day,
Yes.
if you would look at what conditions, what things render the greatest cause of your demise that you have control over, we know stress is one of them, weight is the other. Okay, so those are the 2 things that actually lead into other conditions. So a lot of people don't realize how much stress plays a role in diabetes and other conditions too as well.
But yeah,
So
We're going to
did-
definitely talk about that.
Yes,
Good,
yes.
excellent.
About the overeating and making bad food choices. So you're
Yeah.
stressed out, you grabbing the closest thing to
you got it. And this is one of the things I
Comfort food.
Comfort
Yeah.
food.
And for years, and one of the things I write about in the book that I'm writing, I talk about a lot in the beginning. I'm working on patients with helping them to get their blood sugar under control. And what I realized is that it wasn't so much what they were eating, but was what was eating them.
Wow.
So I'm also a life coach.
Okay.
So
I like
with
that.
my patients, I deal in whole mind, body, and spirit.
Yes. Right.
The reason they do so well is we address all those things, because if I don't address the things
That's
that
right.
have gotten you there, you're not going to be able to
Absolutely.
concentrate on
Absolutely.
taking care of this
Absolutely.
physically.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, you're going to repeat that pattern.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Even if I can get the weight off, get the blood sugar under control,
Right.
it was very defeating for me. For patients kept coming back. I wasn't upset with the patient. I was looking at myself. What was I doing
Right.
wrong? What I
Right.
realized was, in their defense and mine, we were not looking at what the biggest issue was.
Absolutely.
And the issue of sleep is also a big thing. I'm
Oh,
amazed
wow.
at how many
Yeah.
people don't
Stepped on my
realize
toes.
how much sleep. If you don't
Okay.
get enough sleep, 6 hours or more, you can
Right.
reduce your span of life by up to 3 to 5
Yes.
years. Research is telling us.
Because the benefits
So-
is in your mind. I mean,
Oh,
your
so
cells
many
are being
benefits.
reproduced, and so.
You know, when I went in and did the research on sleep, it
Yes.
scared me so bad I
Oh
went
my
to bed.
gosh. Okay, so I need to read the research so that it can
Oh,
scare me,
absolutely.
so I can go to bed.
I went to bed. Now, I'm not perfect at it, but I'm so much better at it.
Yes.
Okay, next
awesome.
slide,
Okay.
please.
So the hemoglobin A1C, this is the number I was telling you about for individuals with diabetes. This is a number you should have done at least semi-annually on a quarterly basis. This is the number to tell us if what you're doing is actually working. It reflects the average
Right.
blood sugar for a 3-month period. It can help
Okay.
the doctor determine how well you're controlling your diabetes. And again, the doctor should check it at least twice a year.
Right.
If you're not in
Yes.
control, do it quarterly.
Yes.
Okay? So
Okay.
this number is wonderful because it gives us a snapshot of how well you're doing.
Absolutely.
You can't fake this number the
Right.
night before you
That's
go in
right.
for your
That's
test.
right. Quick,
fast, real
Because
fast.
It's
Can't
over
do
a 3-month period.
Okay,
Wow.
okay.
And so
All right.
to kind of show you how it works, these cells, I won't go into what the little balls mean, but know that pre-diabetes, as I said, range from A1C 5.7 to 6.4. Someone without diabetes wouldn't top 5.7.
Okay.
The
Okay.
person with type 2 would come in at 6.5 or higher. Okay? So, is there any good news? Yes. We can reduce your chance of developing type 2 and being a high risk. Lose weight, exercise, medications, if they're must. Yeah, I make the point to people when it comes to medication. I have patients come in and see me all the time. And they'll tell me about their coworkers, their family member came in. You help them reverse their diabetes. You got them,
Yes.
they lost 50
Yes.
pounds. Can you do that for me? The first thing I say to them, my goal is to get the blood sugar under control because that's
Absolutely.
ultimately what prevents complications.
Yes.
Yes.
And as Malcolm X said, by any
By
means
any means
necessary.
necessary.
So,
Yes.
so if it
love
requires diet, exercise, medication, we're going to do everything that's required to get you there.
Yes.
But I would not promise you that we're going to be able to do it without any
I
medication.
love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So most of the cause of diabetes, of course, is due to the end-stage complications, and that's what we're trying to prevent. You have got to investment of resources into early diagnosis, patient education,
Yes.
prevention, and treatment. This is going to pay off for us.
Okay.
You're going to live longer, increase productivity, and reduce the cost overall over time.
Okay.
So you got to control your diabetes. You cannot let it control you.
All right.
Love it,
Woo,
love it,
whoa,
love it.
This
This
was
was an awesome
excellent.
show.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
You
Oh,
need
this
to
is
reach
excellent.
Sharon Hawk.
Yes.
Here's her information. But you know what? There was a question I was going to ask. We're going to save that for a later time. But the question is, I am hearing that Alzheimer is the new diabetes 3.
One of the
Well,
things.
you don't have to talk about right now.
Okay.
We're going to come back. We're going to bring
We're gonna have
Sharon
her
back.
back.
Okay?
Absolutely.
But we want to thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Thank
I have
you
enjoyed it. It
again.
was
You got
wonderful.
another good one.
Yes.
Thank you, dear.
Can't wait to air
Awesome.
this program. And you know, we're coming back with our special program next Sunday. Sir Charles Carey will be here.
Excellent.
You know what? Till then, we need you to be
Be
safe,
safe.
Yes.
be
Be
smart,
smart,
be
be
healthy.
healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Awesome. Awesome. Hey.
Well, I wear my clothes like this because I can. And I wear my hair like this because I can. And I walk around like this because I can. And I do my thing like this because it's who I am. And if you're expecting me to give you an apology for being nothing that you're used to, love a drummer, you